Hey guys, Apav here, and as you can tell by the title of the video, I think they're located down there. I just had a flashback to old YouTube where they were at the top of the video. Anyways, um, this video is about the new PlayStation 5, and if you couldn't tell by like all my games and my shirt, I have called myself a PlayStation fanboy since as long as I can remember. I started off on the PS2 playing games like Sly Cooper and Jak and Daxter, which really got me into more cinematic games and unlockable stuff, like how in Sly Cooper you can buy stuff, and in ATV Offered Fury you could upgrade your vehicles, and I learned like that was what kept me going in games, not so much like a score counter. I really wanted to learn more about the story or just unlock stuff that made me better. That's also why I like the original, or not original, but the the mid-grade Call of Duties when you would play them online, and the guns you unlocked were actually better instead of just equal to the first gun you unlocked. Anyways, the reason I've called myself a PlayStation fanboy is because right around middle school was when people were getting their Xbox 360s and PS3s. No one I knew had a PS3 except for my cousin, and I got a PS3 because I had a PS2 and I just thought PlayStation would make the games that I like to play, which turned out to be true with games like Uncharted and Infamous. However, everyone at my school had an Xbox, and at least at the time I felt so much like an outcast being the only person with a PlayStation and everyone just talking about how cool they were with Xbox Live and how PlayStation Network was inferior and just how the PlayStation was inferior in general, which made me very defensive of PlayStation. It was somewhat of the console wars 2009 edition. So during that time I learned a lot about PlayStations, what I thought was better about PlayStations, and why I preferred PlayStation, which I was never like a fanboy elitist because I had Nintendo consoles, and right after that I started collecting Nintendo consoles and Sega consoles. I just was always put off from Xbox just because of how I was treated in that one year. And to this day, I'll see comments on PlayStation stuff that's mostly just people comparing it to Xbox and saying how Xbox is better. And I feel like that's people who had the 360 and now have a PS4 but still just wish to complain about very simple stuff like the analog sticks, which we'll get onto controllers later. The reason I'm setting myself up as like someone who knows a bit about PlayStation is because there's some critiques I have about the information we're getting about the PS4, and just some things that I hope Sony will change before it, or PS5, while we're on the 5 now, so that Sony will maybe change some things before it comes out. So, in spirit of those old PlayStation advertisements that I fell in love with, dear PlayStation, the first and most generic warning I have is please do not move too quickly. I've heard that they want people a smooth transition from PS4 to PS5 as fast as possible, and I see where they're coming from that because when they moved from PS2 to PS3 it was so slow, and I think it cost them a lot of money because the original PS3s had backwards compatibility and people were just continuing to buy PS2 games, so then they had to do away with backwards compatibility, and that's why the PS4 didn't have it because they got screwed over on the PS3, and now Xbox was kind of gaining some publicity because they had backwards compatibility and PS4 didn't. So I understand why they're bringing them back. That's the next topic. However, don't force people out of the PS4. It's a great system, and I'd hate to like sort of taint its success by trying to push the PS5 too heavily. We don't want people to feel abandoned by using their own consoles or like less of a PlayStation user. On to the backwards compatibility, I would love, and I feel like so many people would love this, and this would be a huge thing, if I could play every game that's on this shelf that can fit inside a disc tray on the PlayStation 5. I know that's a lot to ask, it might not be physically possible at this point in production, but the people who still have PS1 and PS2 games, they're not going to screw you over, or PS3 games too. They're not going to screw you over because those games aren't being made new anymore. You could open up this entire library and you're not going to lose too much money doing it. And oh my gosh, would that be so cool. And being able to upscale PS2 games into HD like you can do with PS1 games would just be so cool, and I would love to see that. It would also clear up so much space on my desk right now because I have a PS3, PS4, and then a PS5 all next to each other. Hopefully I'll just pop in my PS5 and then my PS4 will kind of be obsolete, but we'll have to see. I don't know. Am I going to have all these consoles up here? I would just love to be able to play all of them on one thing. That would be so cool, and it's completely possible to do because you guys were the ones who first did like a good selling disc-based console, and that means all your games are on the same format, or the same shape of format. I would just love to see that. The third thing is a warning, and it's part of why I love PlayStation. What Vice President Kevin Butler said at the, I think, 2010 E3 conference about all this video game stuff, the main thing is it's about the games. And for me, PlayStation has the best games. I mean, the release of Infamous right at the beginning of the PS4 and Killzone, those are amazing, and I still love them. They're still some of my favorite PlayStation 4 games. And that's what keeps brands like PlayStation and Nintendo in existence, because you have to buy those consoles to play those games. And they support the development of these games, and Sony treats some of their like major developers pretty dang well, and I just love that. In order to keep these things going, I would really recommend keeping them console exclusives and not putting them on PC. I might bring down the wrath of the PC gamers with this one, but if we want to keep consoles in existence and not just turn the PlayStation into a computer, which would pretty much be the end of PlayStation unless you opened a computer company, I would very much want it to all be only on PlayStation, because that justifies the purchase to me. I don't want to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on PlayStation stuff when I can just invest in one good computer and then have nothing else. That also would probably be the death of physical releases, and as you can tell, I'm a big fan of physical releases. And now this information just came out today, but is very important to me, and I don't know my complete thoughts about it, but the new controller. Now, I like the features you packed into it. I like how you're trying to make it look more futuristic with the colors. And I like where you place the light bars. I really hope you can turn those off though, because I know some people are going to be annoyed by it. There's some design choices I don't like. I didn't like on the Vita how you did away with the colors on the face buttons. I really enjoy our buttons here. It's just like what makes PlayStation PlayStation, and you've kept it the same forever. I would really like to keep the pink, red, green, and grayish blue colors alive, and that kind of makes the controller to me a PlayStation controller. Also, it's just lacking in color. I know that's made to make it futuristic, but it makes it seem generic, like a third-party controller. The big elephant in the room is that it looks to be the exact shape of the Xbox One controller, and as a big fan of PlayStation and seeing Xbox people always hate on the PlayStation controller, and people who've switched from previous consoles onto PlayStation, people are always going to hate the PlayStation controller as long as the analog sticks are in this configuration. They don't care about the shape, maybe slightly, but their main gripe is always the analog sticks. And I love the analog sticks the way they are. You guys did the dual analog stick thing first, and you did it right. And I'm going to explain that real quick to people who are also going to hate me in the comments. Again, I don't hate other companies. I love all things gaming, and it is about the games. The reason I prefer this, for one, your hands are symmetrical, but also the reason the buttons are above the analog stick is so you can quickly swap to the face buttons. With the D-pad, which is essentially being used as 4 extra buttons in a lot of games like first-person shooters, you can easily do the same exact thing. It's just like having 4 more buttons. I think the reason people prefer the Xbox controller is because, again, all these people who got into pro gaming seem to have come from back when Call of Duty was more of an Xbox thing. And now they're switching over to PlayStation because PlayStation is becoming more of the Call of Duty system, with them getting the exclusive Call of Duty content away from Xbox, because Xbox used to have that in the previous generation. So knowing Xbox fans, at least based on the comments on people reacting to the new PlayStation 5 controller, which they're calling the DualSense, which I think is pretty cool, it seems like people are still complaining about the analog stick position, which is ridiculous. It's a PlayStation controller. It's going to have a PlayStation layout. Why try to make it feel more Xbox-like? I am a huge fan of the new PS4 controllers. I thought I would hate any change to the controller. I was a big fan of the PS2 controllers, big fan of the PS3 controllers. Even when people were swearing by the Xbox 360 controllers, I'm just so used to tiny controllers. And then when this came out, it felt like how I imagined a controller should feel like, because it's still a PlayStation controller, but yet your fingers just wrap around it perfectly. It fits your hand perfectly, but it still feels open. It still feels like I'm gripping a controller and not like a brick with hand grooves in it, which can be comfortable, but when I grab a Xbox controller, I always feel like it's like controlling me, and like I'm not controlling it. Like, it's so bulky in my mind. Obviously, people love those controllers, and that's why they go with the Xbox, but it's gonna upset a lot of PlayStation fans, I feel, unless, like, I've never held it, but I feel like you could slim it down just a little bit if that's possible. Just make it seem more like a PlayStation controller. I'm gonna do a test on my computer real quick to see if, like, the outlines of the controllers are really as similar as they look, because if you look at them side by side, they look really similar. Alright, so right here I have GIMP. I'm going to outline this and see how it compares to the Xbox One controller. Are you already seeing my issue with this? When you look at this, do you see a PlayStation controller? Those are pretty freaking dang similar. Hang on, let's just move this over here. Oh man, I'm having trouble telling these apart. This isn't even planned. Oh my gosh, all you can tell is like R1 and L1, and these are a bit winged out more because you grip it like this way instead of where on a PS4 controller you actually kind of use the handles as a handle. Okay. Just keep in mind that PlayStation is PlayStation for a reason, and you have done a good job at getting people who previously had an Xbox warmed up to PlayStation stuff by bringing over Call of Duty stuff and making the controller fit more hands and still going for that pro gamer approach. And as for the hardware, just for the people watching, I actually think the hardware is pretty comparable, if not better than the Xbox One. We'll have to see what developers can do, because while the Xbox One is kind of stagnant, we know what it can do, the PlayStation seems more variable with what they might be able to pump out of it. And it's also supposed to be more user-friendly for developers, which is a big plus. The PS3, back when I used to debate with that, it seemed to actually have faster hardware. It's just no one could access it because it was a nightmare to develop for. That's why Skyrim ran terribly, but The Last of Us looks like the greatest thing ever made for that generation. And it's not just because it was one of the last things developed, even Uncharted 2 looks amazing, and it's because Naughty Dog knew how to develop for the PS3. If more people know how to develop for the PS5, and then people like Naughty Dog can push the limits, that could make this console amazing. I just really hope it stays a PlayStation console because that's what's kept me in this all these years. And a quick thing adding right at the end. Dear PlayStation, or dear Sony, please release the Xperia Play 2. Completely random side tangent that has nothing to do with anything anyone cares about. But the Xperia Play was my very first smartphone, and I love that thing to death. After like a year or two, it started having a lot of issues where I couldn't even go through the menus. Maybe the touchscreen was broken, maybe the software was glitching out, but it was kind of over. But having a controller built into your phone was such a cool concept, and from the moment the PSP Go came out, I was like, they need to make this thing a phone, because you know, it's phone-like, and then you can just slide it open and have a controller. If you guys could do that again, I would buy it instantly, because there are games like Call of Duty Mobile and Fortnite, and that game that I just played that was like Minecraft but had controller support. They all work with like controllers, and when I had an Xperia Play, I remember playing controller-based games like I think it was Buildercraft or something, like a Minecraft knockoff that worked with that controller, and it was super cool. I'm sure you guys could develop something even better now, and I feel like the market has changed because in 2012, not as many people were looking for game phones, and now when the PS Vita came out, I saw in newspapers people saying that, why would I buy this? I have a smartphone. Well, you could provide them with that smartphone that could actually fill a gaming experience and market it with things like Fortnite and Call of Duty and Minecraft, and finally kind of make that true gaming phone that I think more people are looking for nowadays. Alright, coronavirus lock-in rant over. Thank you, PlayStation, for providing me all these hours and years of fun, and all the fanboys out there of other consoles, good on you too. I'm sure you love like Halo and Zelda, and as you can tell, so do I. I like a lot of Sucker Punch and Naughty Dog games, so I've stuck with PlayStation for a while. I feel like it's a very solid platform to go with because they're like a legit console. They don't really go with many gimmicks, but they're also not so focused on appealing to American audiences, so you get a more diverse base of games. Like, I feel like the Xbox usually only caters to America, and that's why their console exclusive genres aren't as diverse. Also, all their games are on PC for the most part, so if I just get a fast enough PC, I can play those anyways, and I might have to since I make YouTube videos. Anyways, I don't really know how to end this video. I don't want to sound like divisive. If I had gotten as much hate as I did on my 2DS unboxing from Nintendo fanboys, when I was the age that I was getting hate from Xbox fanboys, I probably wouldn't like Nintendo either. And it has nothing to do with the games. So I like Xbox and I like Nintendo for what they do because, again, it's all about the gaming. Just please stop hating on each other. It's getting really annoying when I see updates from IGN and like half of the emoji reactions are laughing faces to something people really enjoy. It's kind of stupid. And then all the comments are something bad. That even happens when you look at like PlayStation uploading trailers and stuff. Half the comments are usually people dissing the game. Like, can the gaming community become less toxic and less hateful about things other people really enjoy? But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If anyone at Sony watched this, Thank you so much, and long live play.